So in our last video, we talked about elimination as a method to solving systems. We're still going to look at elimination method. However, now it's going to involve more steps. But before we get into that, I actually want to just review elimination. So again, you remember we have to either add, we're either adding or subtracting. And so looking at this problem here, determining whether or not I'm going to add or subtract is all about what will eliminate a variable. And I notice if I subtract, it will cancel out my x's. And then 4 minus the 1y gives me 3y, and negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. And from here I would divide by 3, and I get a y value then of negative 3. So then I take that value for y and we'll plug it into either equation, and to be honest with you, this bottom one looks like the easiest. So I would do 2x, now it says plus y, but because y is negative, I'll do minus 3 is equal to 1. I add 3 and I get 2x is equal to 4, and I divide by 2 and I can see that x is equal to 2. And so my final answer is 2, negative 3. So what's going to make this a little bit more complicated in today's video is that my coefficients aren't going to be the same. So looking at example 1, I look at my coefficients. I've got 4 and I've got 6. Okay, obviously not the same. Then I've got 5 and 15, again, not the same. So what I can do is I can kind of mold an equation or manipulate an equation so that the coefficients are the same. And I notice that 5 and 15, I could do something to 5 to get 15. And what I could do is I can multiply it by 3. So if I'm going to manipulate anything, I have to manipulate the whole thing. I can't just manipulate one thing. So I'll do 3 times the 4x, and I'll get 12x. And actually, hold on a second, I'm going to write this down here. And then I'll do 3 times negative 5y, that's negative 15y. And 3 times 20, that gives me 60. And now I'm going to cross this out because I'm not going to use it now, and I don't want to get confused. So now these two are is the system, I suppose, and we'll decide whether we're going to add or subtract. And because my coefficients in front of y are the exact same, I will subtract. So when I subtract, let me just move this over, I'll do negative 6 minus 12, that gives me negative 18, and negative 30 minus 60 is negative 90. And I'll divide both sides by negative 18, and x is equal to 5. And then from here, it's just like how we did it in the first problem. So we'll, take that, plug it into an equation, and honestly, you could, how come this isn't erasing? There we go. You can plug it back into this original one since it looks so easy. So I could do 4 times 5, which is 20. And then minus 5y is equal to 20. And then we'll subtract 20 to both sides. And I get negative 5y is equal to 0. And so my y value is then 0. So my final answer is 5, what am I doing? 5, 0. So looking at the next one, I'm going to ask myself the same question. Look at my coefficients. Okay, I got 4, negative 1. 7 and 5. Okay, so 7 and 5 aren't really good to work with, but I could easily manipulate the 1 to become a 4, right? I can multiply it by 4. So 4 times negative x is negative 4x, times the 5 is negative 20y, and then times the negative 11 is negative 44. And then from here, I'll decide to add, because that's what will cross out or cancel my x's. 7 plus negative 20y is negative 30y, and then negative 8 plus negative 44 is going to be negative 50. Oh, brain fart. I don't know why I can't do that. 44 plus 8, okay, 52, geez. So then I'll divide by 13, holy cow. Divide by negative 13, and I get y is equal to 4. So then I can go ahead and I can plug this into any old equation. Let's see, so I'll plug it into, let's just do the very top one. So I'll do 4x, now 7 times 4 is 28, so I'll just put that in there right away. Then I'll subtract the 28 over, so negative 8 minus 28 is negative 36. I don't trust myself to do mental math in this video. So I get an x value then of negative 9. So my final answer is a negative 9 and 4. Now sometimes we have to manipulate both equations, okay? I can't just multiply one. And so in this next example. Okay, I got 2 and 7 and 2 and 9. So there's nothing I can multiply 2 by to get 7, and there's nothing I can get multiply 2 by to get 9. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to multiply both of them. And it's kind of just up to you what you want to, if you want the x's to have the same coefficient or the y's. I'm just going to go with the x's. So for me, that would mean multiplying the first one by 7 to get the x coefficient to be 14. So I'd have 14x minus 14y is equal to 28. And then doing the same thing then for the bottom equation, but now I'm going to multiply by 2. That gives me a coefficient of x for 14. There we go. So now I can see that I would have to subtract these two equations because that's what would cancel out the x's. Negative 14 minus a negative, so it turns to plus, and that gives me 4y. And 28 minus 4 is 24. So I get a y value then of 6. Take that y value, I could even plug this back into the original one. So I'll do 2x minus 2 times 6 is 12 is equal to 4. I'll add the 12 over to get 16 and divide by 2, and I get x is equal to 8. So I get my final answer of 8 and 6. So I would at this time try number 4 and see if you can do it on your own. So again, I see 4 can be multiplied by anything to get 5, and there's something to multiply 2 by to get 5. So I'm going to have to multiply both equations here, and maybe I try and just change the y values. So that would mean I would multiply the top equation by 2 and the bottom equation by 5. Now, if you manipulated the equation so that the x is canceled, that's okay, you still get the same answer. So I'll do 2 times 4x times 5y times 18, and that's going to give me 8x plus 10y is equal to 36. Then I'll multiply the 5 in. I get 25x plus 10y is equal to, let's see, 14 times 5 is 70. And then from here, I'll go ahead and I'll subtract the equations. 8 minus 25 is negative 17x. My y's cancel, and 36 minus 70 is negative 34. And when I divide by negative 17, I get an x value then of 2. So if I plug 2 into the original top equation, okay, so that would be 8 plus 5y is equal to 18. I'd subtract 8, get 5y is equal to 10, divide by 5, and I see that y is also equal to 2. And so we get the answer 2, 2. Now, in this last example, not only is it not in the right format, but then we're going to take it one more step and then evaluate an expression. So this one's going to be a doozy. So the first thing I would want to do here is I want to get my x's and y's to both sides. So I'm going to add my y over. And so I get 2x plus y is equal to 23. Then I'm going to add my 3x over for my second equation, and I get, but notice how my y looks like it's going to be written first. So I'm going to put 3x first, and 2y is equal to 37. So that's step 1. My x's and my y's are lined up. Now I have to see, can I eliminate? And I can't right off the bat because my coefficients aren't the same. So I'll multiply the top equation by 2 to get my y coefficients the same. So I'll distribute that, and I get 4x plus 2y is equal to 46. Kind of just lightly cross that out because I might come back to it. And then I can see I'll have to subtract these so that my y's cancel, and I'll get negative x is equal to negative, let's see, 37 minus 46 is negative 9, so x is equal to 9. So now this might be helpful to take that value, actually plug it back into this original equation. So 2 times 9 is 18 plus y is equal to 23, because now all I have to do is subtract 18 to both sides, and I'll get 5. So y is equal to 5. So my solution is negative 9 and 5. But now I have to take that one step further, and I got to plug it into that expression. So I've got negative 9 minus 4 times 5, which is just negative 9 minus 20. So my answer is negative 29. Holy cow, was that a doozy of a problem? So now let's look at some word problems and then a little try on your own. So for example 6, it says there are 23 animals in the barn. Some are chickens and some are pigs. So I'm going to underline 23 animals, chickens, and pigs. There are a total of 52 legs. How many of each animal are there? So that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how many of each animal. So that's going to be my X and my Y. So let's make X chickens, and we'll make Y pigs. Now, what is difficult about this problem is that they're kind of being vague on the information that they give you. So we know that there's a total of 23 animals, right? So X plus Y equals 23. But then they also give me a total of 52 legs. So kind of like when we involve dollar amounts, we're going to involve legs. So I know chickens only have 2 legs, but pigs have 4. So that's how I get my second equation. All right, so there's my system. Now I can easily manipulate the top one by multiplying by 2, and I get 2x plus 2y is equal to 46. From here, I'll go ahead and subtract, because that's what how my x's cancel, and I get 2y is equal to, looks like 6. Let me just double check. I'm doubting myself today. Nope. 52 minus 46, yep. Okay, and so I divide by 2, and y is then 3. So that means there are 3 pigs. Well, if there's a total of 23, then that means that there are a total of then 20 chickens, right? That would be a total of then 23. So 20 and 3. So it's kind of the same concept with nickels and dimes, which is what we see in example 7. So in example 7, it says Greg found 50 coins. Okay, there's a total. Between the seats of his car, there were only nickels and dimes, and that's another total here. So we want to know how many dimes and nickels, so that would be my X and Y. So we'll say how many nickels, that comes first, so I'll just make that X, and Y will be dimes. Well, altogether, we know he's got 50, so X plus Y equals 50. Now we also know how much each is worth, right? So nickels are 5 cents, dimes are 10, and it added up to be $3.40. So here's my system. And so now I can use elimination. I'll just multiply the top by 0.05. That'll get rid of my X value. So distribute that to everything. And just double check that that's, okay, so it's not 10. I didn't think that was right. Sorry. Not 10. So 0.05 times 50 is 2.5. All right, so then I kind of lightly, I'll come back to that, right? Because that's a good one to substitute in my known value eventually. And I'll subtract, those cancel. I'm left with 0.05y is equal to, let's see, $3.40 minus 2.5 gives me 9.9, and I'll divide that by 0.05, and that gives me 18. Well, if I know I have a total of 50 coins, 18 of which are dimes, okay, 50 minus 18 gives me a remainder of 32 nickels. So at this time, I want you to do the try nows. So for the first one, I noticed right away that my coefficients are not the same. So obviously 10 and 8 and 9 and 2. And there's nothing I could do to 8 to get 10 or 2 to get 9. So that means I'm going to have to manipulate both of these. So I'm just going to go for changing the x. And so a common multiple of 8 and 10 would be 40. Okay, so I would multiply the top equation by 4 and then the bottom equation by 5. And so I'll start with the top equation. So this would become 40x minus 36y is equal to 80. And then the bottom equation would be 40x minus 10y is equal to 80, I think, right? I'm doubting myself. Yep, 80. And I'll go ahead and subtract, because that's what will cancel out my x's. And let's see, negative 36 minus negative 10, a lot of negatives here, gives me negative 26, because minus a negative we end up adding. And then this actually ends up being 0 over here, right? 80 minus 80. And so that makes my y value then 0, which is then really convenient when I go to plug this back in. So if I plug it in for y, it just basically cancels out my y, and I'm left with 8x is equal to 16, making x then 2. And so my solution is 2, 0. Hopefully you saw what is 2x plus 8y then. So I'm just going to evaluate based off of my values for x and y. And 2 times 2 is 4. Now 8 times 0 is just 0. And so that evaluation port, its answer is 4. Then for number 2, so I notice that it's not in standard form. So I'm going to move this guy over here by adding 2y. And I'll write the new equation just right below here. So 3x plus 2y is equal to 10. And then I notice, I'm even going to zoom up, that I notice that that 3 needs to go to the other side. So I'll add it. And so then I'll get 2x plus 5y is equal to 3. And then again, my coefficients aren't the same. I'm going to have to manipulate both of them. So I'll just work with my x's. So I know that 3 and 2 I can change to 6 by multiplying the 3 by 2 and multiplying the 2 by 3. So when I distribute the 2, I get 6x plus 4y is equal to 20. Then I'll distribute in the 3, so I get 6x and 15y is equal to 9. Now I'll determine whether or not I'm adding or subtracting, and I will subtract in order to cancel out the x's. 4 minus 15 will be negative 11. Sorry, I had a little brain fart. And then 20 minus 9 is positive 11. And then I'll divide both sides by negative 11, and my y value is then negative 1. And then I have to find my x value. So let's see, I'm going to plug this into, I'm going to do this equation. I could do any equation I want because technically it should work for all of them. And so I would do 3x plus 2 times negative 1 is equal to 10. Well, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 or minus 2. And then I'll add the 2 to the other side and divide by 3, and I get 4. And so my solution then is 4, negative 1. And then they're asking what's the x coordinate, so it's the x value, so x is 4. And then finally our word problem. So it says Jason found 82 coins in his room. There were only quarters and nickels, and it added to a total of $14.70. So how many of each does he have? So if I'm finding how many quarters and how many nickels, that's going to be my x and y value, my two unknowns. So x will be quarters. That looks like a W. That's an N. And y will be nickels. So I know altogether he's got 82 coins. And then I know obviously the value of quarters would be 25 cents, and nickels are 5 cents, and this totals up to $14.70. So that's my system. Now I'm going to manipulate the top equation. Let's just go ahead and multiply it by 0.25. Everything gets multiplied by that. So I get 0.25x and 0.25y. Now let's see, what's 82 times 0.25 gives me 20.5. So now I'm working with these two equations. I will go ahead and subtract. So my x's cancel. This will give me negative 0.2y is equal to, and then 14.7 minus 20.5 gives me negative 5.8. And then when I divide that by 0.2, that gives me a y value of 29. So that means I have 29 nickels. Well, if I have a total of 82 coins altogether, if I do 82 minus 29, that's going to give me a remainder of 53 quarters.